Good morning, nerds. It's the 21st day of November in the year 2023. It is 9:16 in the morning on this Tuesday as we head down the lonely highway towards the holiday season and Black Friday and the end of one of the most newsworthy tabletop role-playing game years in a bit. Between the January thing and the Pinkertons thing and the cards getting stolen thing and the language thing and Kyle Brink, it's definitely been a roller coaster here in tabletop role-playing game world, and it doesn't look like it has coming to any halt. So last night I stumbled across a video, and I'm sorry I don't know where the source was. It was like a brief clip. And I saw it, and then I moved forward, and I moved back, and it was gone as things tend to disappear. So, and I don't know how old it is since they're referring to it as 1D&D. But the question was, what happens if 2024 D&D stumbles and falls? And there were a lot of if-thens in that equation. But from what little I saw, they kind of forgot one major thing that might step up to take the place should 2024 D&D fail to reach the billion-dollar plateau that Hasbro has placed upon it. So, caveat, for one, we know that at this point in time, Hasbro seems to be focusing on Dungeons & Dragons as a brand as opposed to the tabletop role-playing game that we know and love. And that Hasbro is under the assumption that people just aren't gathering to play D&D at tables anymore, at least according to these individuals. Of course, these individuals seem to completely have forgotten about the Adventurers League, organized play, or the conventions, or friendly local game stores doing D&D. But okay, yes, all right. Let's just we know that at this point in time, Wizards of the Coast has been split. We have Wizards of the Coast, everything else, and then we have Dungeons & Dragons Studios, which is producing the 2024 D&D books. We know that of the money Wizards of the Coast has made, 40% of that was digital Monopoly, digital Magic the Gathering Arena, and of course the download purchases from D&D Beyond, despite the mass crashing and everything else. So everything money-wise looks like Hasbro, and everything that Hasbro is doing with the branding of D&D and referring to anything D&D associated as by Hasbro, you will notice that more and more Hasbro replaces Wizards of the Coast and Gary Gygax with themselves. Hasbro made honor amongst thieves, not Wizards of the Coast. That is direction. So that would then lead to the assumption that Hasbro is assuming people don't really want to gather and play D&D anymore, and they're not really investing that much energy in Dungeons & Dragons as we conceive it today. That the direction that Dungeons & Dragons is going to be a digital media branding empire, with most of the play being online, and the physical Dungeons & Dragons as we know it will falter. Now, therefore, should this scenario happen, who steps up to fill the thing? Is it Paizo again? Can Paizo step up and have Pathfinder 2 be the success it was back then? Or is it going to be smaller indie publishers? Since we know the most anticipated tabletop role-playing game list of 2024 seems to be on indie publishers and second publishers. And we can speculate on that history by looking at previous moments in time when D&D faltered and other companies were there to take its place. Now, the first one I can remember is GURPS. So we're getting to 1984, 1985. Dungeons & Dragons is a lull. People aren't playing with it. People have lost interest in it. People want something else. GURPS comes along, and within days, GURPS is the game of choice. People are converting everything to GURPS. GURPS sales are outselling D&D in 85, 86, 87, 88. I mean, for a while, GURPS was king. Fourth edition led us to Paizo and the onslaught of the OGL. Thanks to the 4th edition debacle, indie publishers and Paizo were able to step up and take D&D to the rim, push them to the edge until Wizards basically just abandoned 4th and took a year off to make board games, and then came out with D&D Next and 5th. So that is probably most likely the scenario. So the question is, of course, who steps up? Is it going to be Paizo? Is it going to be somebody else? Is there somebody out there who might be making a game that has the built-in fan base that if Dungeons and Dragons fails in 2024, and if Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro does take it in the direction we think they're going to take it in the direction because they don't understand their target audience, who steps up? Who captures the imagination of the media-savvy 2024 D&D marketplace and says, hey, come play in our sandbox for a bit? I'm not sure. I'm not sure who has the media presence and the connection and the fan base to take over. And what does Hasbro do when the $1 billion precipice isn't met? So we're assuming in this possible future, D&D fails. 2024 D&D doesn't live up to the expectations that Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast has for it. The ways things are going right now, considering how much money Hasbro is bleeding right now, $40 a share, that's just unheard of. Another Q3 net loss. The writing's on the wall. If Hasbro continues to take the game in the direction it's taking it, and they expect D&D Studios to make $1 billion next year, it's not going to happen. And if they expect D&D Studios to make another $1 billion in 2025, 2026, and 2027, again, I don't see that happening. Right now, D&D Studios is bleeding money, and the only press they're attracting is basically negative press. Nobody is screaming to the heights about how great Planescape was. In fact, Wizards has sort of already forgotten Planescape happened, and they're focusing all their attention on Deck of Many Things. Except, of course, there is no Deck of Many Things because the physical product has been delayed. And the negative press that Deck of Many Things is generating because of Mackenzie and because of the physical product still not existing, I assume that the next product that comes along, they're going to just throw Deck of Many Things under the bus and be like, oh, look at this. And that's probably going to be the 2024 D&D Player's Handbook. And yeah, right now, Wizards of the Coast, if they continue the way they're going, there's no way they're going to make that $1 billion precipice. So again, it appears at this point in time that Wizards of the Coast is now two separate entities. We have Wizards of the Coast D&D Studios, led by D&D architect Jeremy Crawford. I'm not making those up. That's what Crawford refers to things now as. And we have Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering, and everything else, which includes the 40% moneymaker that was digital. Digital made Wizards of the Coast the most money in the most previous quarter. So again, they're going to focus on digital. And most of that digital money was from the video games, not from D&D Beyond. That was, the Monopoly game and the other stuff that made them the money. So yes, they throw it under the bus if it doesn't instantly make the sums they think it's going to make. Hey, I think this guy and I are doing a podcast next Monday. Who wants to jump in on that? So again, who's the Paizo? Who's the GURPS? And I'm not being subtle, am I? I think it's pretty obvious that if they play the scenario correctly, it's Daggerheart. Daggerheart could be the worst tabletop role-playing game ever made. I mean, right now it looks extremely gimmicky. I noticed they had tons of people sign up for the playtest, but none of those people are getting the playtest yet. We still know very little about it, and what we do know about it, it just feels like, hey, it's another Powered by the Apocalypse ripoff attempt to do D&D, and is based around gimmicks. Ooh, cards. And gimmicky role-playing doesn't tend to have the shelf life. But that doesn't matter, because Daggerheart's rise or fall has nothing to do with how good or bad the system is, and everything to do with the media empire that is Darrington Press / Critical Role / Matt Mercer and Marissa Ray. Now, if they play this right, they take the majority of the D&D 5e crowd that came to 5e because of Critical Role, and they take it with them when they leave Wizards of the Coast and focus on Daggerheart. So if Campaign 3 ends as the introduction to Campaign 4 being the progression from 5e to Daggerheart, or a series of one-shots where we watch the progression of the previous incarnation to Campaign 4 being Daggerheart, and they grab that fan base that has slavishly followed them, that's a huge chunk of D&D money that suddenly is gone. And we want that to happen. Remember, we want that to happen. We want that money to go elsewhere. And the only company right now that has the wherewithal to capture the imagination of the 5e crowd is Daggerheart. Paizo, Pathfinder only worked because people still wanted to play 3.5, and because it said, here, this is what D&D should be, had Wizards not dropped the ball. And response, Wizards was, instead of saying, oh man, we're sorry, they were doubling down on every negative thing they said and did with 4th, further pushing away fans from 4th edition towards Pathfinder. The Wizards of the Coast was the best employee Paizo had in 2014, 2015, because nothing Wizards of the Coast did during 2014, 2015, 2016 helped 4E. Did I say 2014? No, that's when 5E came out. When did 4E come out? 2000 and, I don't know, 9, 10, before 5E, right? Anyways, 3.5's done. 4th's out. Wizards is treating the fan base like shit. Wizards is treating customer service like shit. Wizards is treating the friendly local game stores like shit. Wizards is doing everything possibly wrong you can do with a game system and a fan base for that game system. And Paizo's basically just going, hey, look what we got. And people are like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And jumping on the bandwagon. And that's part of why it was so successful. Now, I don't think we're going to see Wizards of the Coast making the exact same mistakes they made with 4th, with 2024 D&D, but I think we can see that they're going to make a lot of mistakes. They're going to throw a lot of things into the pool to see which sinks and what doesn't. They're going to stumble and fall and continue to make the same stupid mistakes and the same stupid media disasters that they have done this year. They're going to continue to let people like Kyle and Mackenzie talk to the press and say the dumb things that Kyle and Mackenzie have been saying. They're going to focus on a non-existing audience because they think that's what people want. And the 5e players are going to be like, wow, I do not want to be a part of this. You're really just making me feel crappy. I don't want to give you any more money. Who wants my money? Daggerheart, if they play the cards right, are like going to be Paizo. And be like, hey, we're over here. Look at us. And people are going to be like, blah, 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 blah. So that's who has the best chance right now, in my humble opinion, of kicking D&D to the curb if 2024 D&D fails. Now, let's say Daggerheart fails too. Or they just drop the ball with Daggerheart like they've done with Illuminated Worlds and Till the Last Grasp and Candle Obscura. Then who? Paizo? Probably not. Maybe, but I don't think the Pathfinder 2nd Edition remaster is going to earn them any fans. Matt Colville or all these little niche games that are coming out. I don't think any of the video game conversions are going to be the ones that kill D&D. I don't think the Brandon Sanderson game is going to be the one that kills D&D. I mean, the fan base is there, but it's not a tabletop role-playing game fan base. And Sanderson doesn't have the media presence that a Darrington Press does. So I don't see that being the D&D killer. I don't see DC 20 being this D&D killer. I don't see, maybe Tales from the Valiant, but I don't think it. So I don't think anybody has the media engine behind them to step up and fill the void when 2024 D&D stumbles and we have a repeat of 4th edition and we have a repeat of GURPS. The only one who has the wherewithal, again, is Daggerheart. But whoever thought GURPS would become the darling? Whoever thought Vampire the Masquerade would become the darling? Whoever thought Cyberpunk would happen? Whoever thought that the games that came out of the OGL and the disaster that was 4th would have the wherewithal to be the darlings that captured the attention of the fans? Paizo was just lucky, right place, right time, right set of situations, right FU. So I could be completely wrong. And some surprise, Shadowdark. I don't know. But if we're just looking at the numbers and the facts in this equation of this multiverse that we're creating in our minds here for this Tuesday morning, asking the question, who steps up if D&D 2024 fails? Again, my number one contender's got to be Daggerheart. Number 2 contender, I think it's a tie between Paizo and Tales of the Valiant. Number 3, Matt Colville. Number 4, yeah, I don't see any of those. I don't see anything else. But who knows? Maybe a Starfinder will capture the attention. Maybe Star Wars. Maybe there's some game coming out that we don't know about that'll be the new GURPS. And just be like, yes! And everybody jumps on it like they did GURPS. I don't know. What are you thinking, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as we speculate this? Again, I don't remember where I saw the video, and it seems like the people who were doing the video apparently had no idea that the Adventurers League existed or that Daggerheart existed, because what I watched of it, they never mentioned either of those. They're like, nobody's playing D&D 5e live anymore, and I'm like, dude, have you not heard of the Adventurers League? Anyways, that's it for today. If you have anything else you want to talk about, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to cut this short. I'm kind of worried about this wind cutting my power. So stay safe out there. It's super windy, and I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks, Ironcaster and Cal, for dropping by. Let me know your predictions for 2024 Game of the Year, and I'll talk to you later. Stay safe. Super windy.